Now let's mention something about the Tulsi Gabbard and the Tim Ryan exchange. Tim Ryan, who the hell is this guy? This guy seems like a weak candidate, but somehow he got up on the stage. But Tulsi Gabbard and Tim Ryan start arguing about the Afghanistan war.
We are no better off in Afghanistan today than we were when this war began. This is why it's so important to have a president and commander-in-chief who knows the cost of war and who's ready to do the job on day one. I am ready to do that job when I walk into the Oval Office. Thank you very much.
Listen, I'm going to go down the line. We have got to have some present there.
The Taliban was there long before we came in. They'll be there long before we leave.
Well,
we cannot keep U.S. troops deployed to Afghanistan thinking that we're going to somehow squash this Taliban that has been there, that every other country that's tried has failed.
I didn't say squash them. When we weren't in there, they started flying planes into our buildings. So I'm just saying right now,
the Taliban didn't attack us on 9/11. Al-Qaeda did.
Oh my God! Tulsi Gabbard just bitch slapped the shit out of Tim Ryan. Hey Tim Ryan, you think the Taliban is the one that flew planes into our buildings on 9/11, which by the way was 18 years ago? So that means if you were born on 9/11, now you could go serve in all those bullshit wars that came from 9/11. It was bullshit wars. If anything, we should have gone after Saudi Arabia. If there's a country that America could have invaded right after 9/11, that would have made sense. Saudi Arabia would have been it. When we tried to sue Saudi Arabia, they blocked it. People in the government blocked it, saying, we got to protect our allies. But the accusation was that they financed it. So Saudi Arabia provides 16 or so of the 19 hijackers, provides all the financing, and yet we're in Iraq, and then we're in Afghanistan, but we're not going after the Al-Qaeda in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the one that produced these terrorists. Saudi Arabia is the one that financed these terrorists. You want to talk about state-sponsored terrorism? That's Saudi Arabia. Who we give money to? Yeah, I'm sure this is all about security. I'm sure they're protecting us from Al-Qaeda. That's what the whole point to the war is.
Al-Qaeda attacked us on 9/11. That's why I and so many other people joined the military to go after Al-Qaeda, not the Taliban.
So Tulsi Gabbard is currently a major in the armed forces. She's a badass when it comes to war and peace issues. She's better than Bernie Sanders. I do have a couple reservations. She's in favor of drone strikes, and she's in favor of the war on terror. Now, terror as a tactic is bullshit, but so is war. So we should declare a war on war and terrorism. And then she also is in favor of drone strikes because she wants to do the war on terror. That is a much better stance, however, just to go after the terrorists, just to go after the people that are actually doing damage to others, not invading countries to steal oil, not invading countries for world hegemony, but actually, keeping the world safe from terrorism. So she's not completely, just a peacenik, but her rhetoric is on point. Her rhetoric is about as good as Mike Gravel's. She says that Donald Trump is Saudi Arabia's bitch, which he is. She called them a bunch of chicken hawks. She called Pompeo and Bolton and that James Mattis, they're all a bunch of chicken hawks. And a chicken hawk is a bitch-ass chicken who can't do shit, right, can never stand up for themselves, but they're full of war. So Pompeo, Bolton, and Mattis, these bitches, probably wouldn't even, defend themselves if they're being attacked in an alley, and yet they're going to send the entire nation, the entire, the armed forces of America to go bomb this person and that person to show how tough they are. They're insecure. They're insecure, wimpy little bitches, and that's why they're pushing for war all over the fucking place.
I served in the war in Iraq at the height of the war in 2005, a war that took over 4,000 of my brothers and sisters in uniforms' lives. The American people need to understand that this war with Iran would be far more devastating, far more costly than anything that we ever saw in Iraq. It would take many more lives. It would exacerbate the refugee crisis. And it wouldn't be just contained within Iran. This would turn into a regional war. This is why it's so important that every one of us, every single American, stand up and say, no war with Iran.
So Tulsi Gabbard, was amazing at this debate. She's, not Mrs. Razzle-Dazzle. She probably could spice up her, rhetoric, but she's taking on the military-industrial complex. So she's parsing the words out very carefully because this is, people might say she's being treasonous, right? She's giving aid to the enemy. But the point is, like in Vietnam, if we're killing a bunch of people and we're the bad guys, it's never too late to turn back around. And so we got to make sure it's right. If we get stuck in some fucking war and we just say, well, it's my country, love it or leave it, you know, my country, right or wrong, who gives a shit? We started killing a bunch of Vietnamese. Let's just kill all the Vietnamese, right? Until what? The whole world's genocided? The people will wake up to that, and that's just bad policy, is, you know, not to mention it's evil as shit. Now, Tim Ryan does say something interesting about Donald Trump. He's sitting there saying that the Republican president is actually anti-war. He's the peace president. He's saying that we should be isolationists and we shouldn't be getting involved in all these wars.
The Taliban was protecting those people who were plotting against us. All I'm saying is, if we want to go into elections and we want to say that we got to withdraw from the world, that's what President Trump is saying.
There are some evidence of that. There is some evidence of that. He is, you know, trying to pull us out of Syria. He said he's going to pull them out, you know, what, 6 months? We had a 6-month timetable. Are we still there? So he tried to get out of Syria, but the Democrats pushed him back into it. He was the one that had that great debate moment when he shitted on Jeb Bush and said that they lied. They lied, and it was a beauty of a lie. So, you know, that was a great debate moment for Donald Trump. So there are some instances when it seems like he's opposed to war. He says that they lied about the Iraq war, so he was sitting there opposed to the Iraq war. But look at the current state of affairs right now. We got 20 shadow wars in Africa. We're bombing 7 countries publicly that we have to admit to, you know, for whatever reason. And so we're publicly bombing 7 countries. We got 20 shadow wars. We're an empire, 900 military bases in 150 countries. So the peace president has been very warmongering, and perhaps it's the Democrats to blame. They pushed him back into the Syria thing. But even though he had some rhetoric about being an isolationist, perhaps maybe being a peace president, maybe pulling out of, you know, the Iraq war is still going on. And so Donald Trump is very much a warmonger. He's a warmongering son of a bitch. He warmongers the shit out of the world.
We can't. I would love for us to.
Protecting Al-Qaeda right now in Saudi Arabia. No, first of all, let's recognize the situation we're in, that the American people deserve a president who will put your interests ahead of the rich and powerful.
So he's not an isolationist. He's not a peace candidate. He talked a good rhetoric, but it, you know, never came to pass. And so Tim Ryan also, just because that's Donald Trump's position to be the peace president, you know, just because he said that a couple times, Tim Ryan is going to take the opposite route. Well, Donald Trump is for peace. Now Tim Ryan is for war. Is that how the Democratic Party is supposed to work? So Tulsi Gabbard is principled on Iran, Venezuela, Iraq. So she's the one that came out against Venezuela. Everybody seems to be against this Iran thing, but Venezuela seems to still be on the table for most of these candidates. She's totally against invading Venezuela. Bernie Sanders said that Maduro was an evil dictator, which sets a pretense, a possible pretense for intervention, whereas Tulsi Gabbard said, just get the fuck out of Venezuela. We don't have any business being there. Just stay the fuck out. And so Tulsi is opposed to the regime war changes, invading sovereign nations, world hegemony, just taking over just to be taken over, might as right, rule by conquest. And this is, you know, this is actually terrifying. Who the hell would accept China invading our country and setting up a bunch of military bases? If you would accept that, then you're a piece of shit, right? You don't want to defend yourself and your family and your loved ones. You're going to welcome a Chinese invading force. But if they do invade us, I'll fight. What the fuck? You know what I mean? I'm not going to get invaded by some other nation. This is our country. We're going to determine our own affairs between these borders. But I wouldn't accept it. I wouldn't accept it. Oh, China invaded us, so let's just, you know, accept it. No, there would be an insurgency, and I'd be a part of that insurgency to fight the Chinese or whoever, right? Whoever invades us, Russia, Canada. If the Canadian invaders come over, I'll fight against the Canadian invaders. You invade this country, we have a right to defend ourselves. I'll defend this country. So I'm told self-defense is intelligence. Self-defense is one of the, that's revolutionary war. You can fight against, you know, oppression. You can fight against invasions of sovereign nations. You can fight against war and terror. But that's the only time that war is acceptable. Revolutionary war is the only acceptable war that's out here. Self-defense is intelligence.
that would honor asylum claims, that would put undocumented immigrants, as long as they haven't committed a serious crime, on a pathway to citizenship, and that would go to the root cause of the issue, which is we need a Marshall Plan for Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador.